Furry Logan Paul is perhaps the most accurate descriptor I've heard when it comes to the person we'll be discussing today. Logan, and by extension the Paul brothers, were previously known for being two of YouTube's premier troublemakers. Almost every decision they made and videos they posted came bundled with drama, as well as every commentator under the sun telling you why setting your pool on fire wasn't the best idea. For a good reason, of course. It was a highly profitable topic, and I'd be lying if I said high school me wasn't highly invested in it all. But as fun as their antics were to hear about at first, it would eventually spiral into darker territory. Talking about how Jake manipulated his fanbase to buy his products, to Logan's YouTube certified Forest Classic. This is where things got out of hand. Where their actions went from being simply obnoxious, semi-harmless stunts, to orchestrating a tasteless performance that would anger and disgust most who were in earshot. Sound familiar? And while Logan would grow and better himself compared to where he found himself years ago, the subject of today's video appears to be approaching that level of infamy Logan had left behind, assuming he hasn't already found himself there. Today I plan to tell you the story of that individual, an individual who tapped the same well until it would eventually begin to dry up, as well as the controversy he would face as he tried to replenish it. This individual goes by the handle Maned Wolfie. So, who are they, you may be asking? Well, Maned Wolfie, or John Wolf, is essentially a fursuiting personality on the internet. There is nothing particularly noteworthy about the individual themselves, but rather the actions they performed. With such a notable following attached to his account, you may be wondering what he had done to hit the PopUFur radar, so to speak. Well, just fursuiting. Doing the usual things you would expect, like going to fur cons, hanging out with his friends, and making ice cubes out of his own ejaculate. The simple things of life, really. These were the types of tweets that John got the most widespread interaction on. His posts consisting of sexual provocation, such as a video he'd post of himself eating dog treats that he busted a nut onto. The video was uploaded 2 months before the ice cube charade occurred. But from the tweet's caption, we can conclude that at the time of the upload, the stunt was to celebrate hitting 1,000 followers on Twitter, something that would swiftly be overshadowed in the next following months. Now, I've talked about this ordeal occurring in a previous video of mine, and due to how widespread news of it was at the time, you're probably all too familiar with it, so I'm going to be somewhat brief with it. At this point, we're aware that John is a provocateur. Whether positive or negative, he displays an enjoyment for getting reactions and attention from people online. It just so happens that his method of doing so consists primarily of discharging reproductive fluids where they don't belong. This can be noticed just from seeing old tweets such as, to celebrate the launch of my AD, after dark, I'm going to 7-Eleven, getting a pizza, and then coming on it BRB. If I hit 100 followers today, I will come on a pizza and eat it. Fuck yes. Neither of which would occur that day. Regardless, getting sexual with a pizza specifically appeared to be a big thing for John at the time, much to the point that after this missed opportunity, it had to be done. He just had to cover a pizza in his own ranch dressing. That's when the idea came to him instead, eating a pizza with 20 loads on it. With this newfound idea, John would get right to the point, posting a poll asking, "Do you want to nut on a pizza party at BLFC?" He asked for at least 20 participants to cover the pizza. It was the obvious next step in his online persona. He did the math of it all, it just made sense. He would take his time to go around, asking different AD accounts if they would attend, even giving a PowerPoint presentation as to why you should host his party at BLFC.
That brings me on to my 6th point. My 6th point? Come.
You know, as you do.
He's fucking a watermelon, it's so hot.
At this point, planning was already underway. A week from BLFC, you could see John's excitement for the event. His excitement for all the degeneracy and nut shenanigans. And yes, it will be recorded, and there will be plenty of video evidence of it all. Lucky me. And with that, all that was left to do was wait for BLFC to begin. And begin it certainly would. On the second day of the convention, October 22nd, 2021, John would upload a tweet.
Oh my god. Oh my god, man. John, what do you mean? Hey, John, are you gonna come again?
19 confirmed pizza comers. He had accomplished exactly what he set out to do. Conduct a party where acquaintances would perform a pizza bukkake. We've already talked about this plenty in the BLFC video, so I'll just simply summarize what occurred here. The picture was posted and soon spread like wildfire across Twitter. The gasoline that added to the flame was coated pizza being shown sitting in the hallway. It wasn't until 3 hours after this tweet was posted that John would tweet about the pizza being placed in the trash, and then, mysteriously, the original tweet would be deleted and replaced with a copy that stated the pizza wasn't left in the hallway. It was thrown away. This was half-truth, as the story would shift between this and being left in the hallway for a small, nondescript amount of time before being thrown out. Later down the line, the hotel would later ban John from their building for 6 months. However, it wouldn't be because of the party taking place on their grounds, at least not on paper. The reason they would give him was that he trespassed from their property by using their company logos in his social media posts. This does make sense, as users who were disgusted by the original post would mention the hotel's Twitter account in his replies. Although, the only post he made that I'm aware of possessing their logo is when he would announce that he arrived at the venue. An admittedly gorgeous shot here, but looking at what would soon follow, I can't say I would personally try to dispute the decision. Even as BLFC would come to a close for the year, it wouldn't be a proper 15 minutes of fame without the event perpetrator milking it for every ounce of clout it was worth. Along with the substantial boost in follower count, John Pizza Puppy Wolf would go on to brand himself as the Cum Pizza Guy. But don't make the mistake of referring to him as a PuppyFur during this time, because John is the type of guy who doesn't give a damn about popularity. Even though this pizza stunt was admittedly done to celebrate him hitting 2,000 followers. He might have been a popular furry, yes, but to us furries, PuppyFur most certainly has the potency of a slur if this reaction was anything to go by. Regardless, he would soon go on to take this new platform for a ride, joining a friend in making a suggestive music video to the song Riding Me. Surprisingly not age restricted. Alright YouTube. As well as an interview with Atreus Otter, although this video did open on a somewhat souring line.
Now we know furries love our drama, especially the ones who didn't attend the convention.
Make sure to keep this line in mind. He spends his intro relaying that he just came back from BLFC himself, and decides to reach out to Maned Wolfie to ask what happened at the pizza party, to see why everyone was so upset about it. Filling the role of the advocate of truth he displays himself as.
You see, there was a particular pizza party that happened to catch the eye of the entire internet, and furry Twitter just wasn't having it. But because I am curious and I am an advocate of the truth, I wanted to know exactly what happened and why everybody was so upset.
The first question Atreus would ask here is, obviously, why have this pizza splooting party in the first place? Maned Wolfie confirms that, yes, this is in the same vein as the dog treats, just a celebration for a follower milestone.
I passed 1,000 followers, and I'm like, I don't know how to celebrate passing 1,000 followers.
Right,
So
gotta
I
do
decided
something.
Yeah, I wanted to do something, so I decided to slash dog treats and eat them. So I was hungry. That's where this started, because I was like, well, for 1,000, I slash treats. And for 2,000, I was like, I want to get 20 people together, want a pizza.
That's
And this was my plan. That was my plan from the beginning, like a couple months before BLFC.
The next question was about the peak of this mountain, as, while it shared new information, it's where the interviewer starts to subtly try to push his opinion into the interview. The question focused on the pizza being placed in the hallway and what that was all about. John goes on to explain the layout of the hotel suites and how long the party lasted, that being a double suite and 5 hours respectively. He also says that the pizza was placed outside the door for about 30 minutes while they cleaned the room, but there was also a bouncer-like attendee keeping an eye on it the whole time, and the people who were taking photos of it in the hallway were people leaving the party. This is when Atreus would highlight the issue I have with this interview.
Yeah, and I think a majority of the people, especially the people who were there at the con, understood that. But, you know, a lot of people online ran away with some misinformation, but...
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Misinformation happens. It really does.
Yeah.
In the description of this video it says, "Let's let the man speak for himself before we pass judgment on Twitter." What he seems to neglect is that John had ample opportunity to explain this. For reference, Atreus uploaded this video on November 1st of 2021. John had posted the original image on October 22nd, deleted it, and posted an edited caption version the following day. But here he only says the pizza was not left in the hallway, it was thrown away. Nowhere does he announce this detailed information other than a stray tweet responding to some random person's quote tweet. He didn't retweet this information for everyone watching his account to see, so the majority of people only had to go off of the photo of the biohazard sitting in the hotel hall. All people were aware of was John himself tweeting, "It's in the hallway," accompanied by pictures taken of the pizza sitting in said hallway.
So my next question is just that after this picture was posted online, how fast was it before you started seeing a bunch of misinformation?
Oh goodness, I mean, like it was pretty instant. I mean,
right.
It was pretty instant. People were assuming things were like things that just like didn't happen. Like I heard so many rumors and so many just like crazy things that people said, like that just weren't true. It just weren't true. It was instantly, honestly. Like it was as soon as I posted the pizza. I mean I made the comment saying like it's in the hallway. Like I mean. I was like joking and
right.
Probably a bad thing to say.
This information would have only been seen before this interview in two scenarios. If you had tweet alerts on, or you actively searched for it. So the mentality of you weren't at the con so you wouldn't know doesn't work if you actively decide to tell what happened in a poor manner. If you shared it amongst friends or something, I could see how that would make sense. But this was posted and shared on the internet. You know, the place where privacy goes to die. What you should be saying here is that either you need a PR team or a better way to relay information that you share on the internet. Not go on about how misinformation spread like wildfire when you fail to give the information properly. I know it sounds like I'm irrationally mad at John here, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm more irritated that this is being peddled as some sort of groundbreaking interview when it's really just a video where John takes another shot at getting the story straight. This time getting direct help from an acquaintance as he does so. The irritation isn't coming from the information itself. It's how it's being shared in the overarching message the interviewer is trying to peddle with it, to the point it almost mocks what the definition of an interview is. When the interviewer's true intentions are as obvious as Atreus's, you can't really refer to it as an interview anymore.
Right, and if without the extra context of what you were trying to give, I mean, I could see how people would mistake that, but they should mind their business.
Mind your business. Don't put your business on the internet for everyone to see if you don't want everyone to comment on that business. I mean, it's all the same, really. I personally won't be touching the rest of this interview in this video because nothing past this point is really substantial to the timeline here. John just gives more information that we already know. But Atreus spends the allotted time strawmanning against Puritanism, and people commenting on the drama that shouldn't be because a tweet posted publicly on the internet was none of our business. And if this was supposed to be an exclusive interview, then the advocate of the truth here just does so in a heavily unprofessional manner. My problem isn't with the fact that he posted the video, it's with the fact that he advertised this as an exclusive interview when he really should have just called it what it was. A video where he and Maned Wolfie justify having a cum pizza party and posting about it on Twitter while the story was still a hot and ready topic. Or as I like to call it, a conversation between friends broadcasted to his audience.
Because they hate us because they ain't us.
Right. I know, I feel like a lot of people who are mad online were just, jealous that they weren't there.
Although, since I suppose we are allowed to give our opinions freely here, let me just say this.
Honestly, this whole situation could have been much, much worse, and realistically, a lot of what happened wasn't anybody's business, but it seemed like Twitter really wanted to be involved in this convention. So I say, if it's not hurting you, and it's not hurting other people, what's the big deal?
You would think that a furry of all people would be better versed with how internet culture works. That when you post on the internet, it allows anyone who sees it to give their opinion. I guess that isn't always the case. Following what can only be described as making your meme your brand, and driving your brand into the ground thereafter, a new plan was hatched by John. Another idea to top the pizza party as we made our way into the new year. What if a bunch of people got together and just nutted on an object again? This time rather than a food item, John and friends would instead be inseminating a bong. This event would be marked for Las Vegas at Sin City Mercon. Compared to the pizza fiasco, there wasn't much hype towards this stunt as there was the previous. At least none that I could personally come across. Yet there was more than enough evidence pointing towards the event actually occurring. That being, a picture of John with the tarnished bong, a selfie from the alleged 34th person who spit themselves into the glass tube, as well as a video of the 5th person getting ready to do the same. And before you ask, yes, you heard me right, 34th. On February 5th of 2022, a final tally of 34 people attended and contributed to John's bong filling. Much like the pizza incident, a number of attendees were unapologetic as they wore their attendance as a badge of honor. Those being numbers 5, 34, 22, and 16. A number of other attendees were identified by their fursuits, but in the end, you probably have to ask a simple question after all this. And the answer to that question is yes. He did take a rip from that bong afterwards.
Come, I'd do anything for Jesus. I found over 1,700 times in the Word of God where this word is used, come, and that's not cometh and the rest of the comes, but that's just come. Preaching my heart out for 45 minutes to an hour on that one.
All in all, this party was a sign that the initial shock and awe the pizza had received had already worn off. This event was a much smaller footnote in comparison to the one that had followed. And while yes, this can be contributed to it not being as funny as a pizza bukkake sounds, but after such an event, doing the same with a different object becomes somewhat expected. Even if the number of participants this time around had doubled, albeit a number of people will still voice their disgust with it all, as they're allowed. But you can notice the decline in mainstream focus towards John. At the end of it all, he would still be that one furry who nutted on a pizza, as nothing he provided after was new or groundbreaking. It would be like if Tyler the Creator peaked when he ate that cockroach in the Yonkers video. No drive to do anything separate from that, no pushing himself to turn a hobby into an inclining career around something he loves. No, he just decided to become the cockroach guy. So that's essentially what we're beginning to witness here with John. As the awe dissipates and the limelight pivots onto another issue or two, he could coat a poutine and the outside world as a whole wouldn't blink an eye. Well, I probably would, honestly. I mean, have you ever had a poutine? You never go back to base french fries again. But as a wise man once said,
cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Well, clout, but close enough, I guess. With the absolutely heinous allegations of emotional abuse and zoophilia aimed against the fursuit company Don't Hug Cacti, it's no surprise that there's a thread making its way around Twitter listing the people who have bought fursuits from them, or are still publicly supporting the company after these allegations became public, as there isn't really much you can be expected to do with your suit if you bought it before the allegations came out. You can and should denounce them, sure, but what are you gonna do? Burn your fursuit you spent more than $1,000 on in protest? SlatecCollie is a fursuiter mentioned on this list, not because he bought his fursuit after the allegations, but because he continues to support the company as the evidence against DHC's owner pops up on furry Twitter every other week. It also doesn't help that he's been defending zoophilia for a number of years on his baby fur side account, something he would even double down on much more recently. The reason I'm bringing this up is that John ended up getting involved with this. Being a supposed acquaintance of Slate, John felt he needed to defend the zoofalcon donor. Not for the zoophilia directly, mind you, but for having a suit from DHC. He calls the tweet disinformation and says that Slate had his fursuit for years before DHC's allegations came to be. His proof for this claim being a photo Slate had with the suit in 2018. I believe he misread the initial tweet as it said that they were on the list if they either purchased the fursuit after allegations or if they supported them after the allegations. At least until I checked the tweet he quote-tweeted and saw that the proof was attached directly to the tweet. This didn't stop John from going on about how, because he happened to have a suit before the allegations were made, everyone on the thread had to have been falsely accused. And how if you believed a stupid tweet at face value, that you were a sheep and can't do your own research, without any mention of the evidence below the tweet. I guess we're just supposed to take his tweet at face value. I mean, that tweet does have an odd date and legitimately has nothing to do with the evidence attached to the thread. But mind you, this is in regards to just the Don't Hug Cacti aspect of Slate's track record. John never brought up his thoughts on the zoophilic tweets Slate had made, at least not until he DM'd someone critical of Slate's zoophilic posts, berating them by saying they were clout and attention whore-seeking. Do you remember when I pointed out Atreus's opinionated stance that was unfitting of an interviewer and how they turned out to be acquaintances later down the line? Well, that's a rather common mentality you'll come across when you speak against a renowned popufur in the fandom. You'll notice how, just as Atreus had no issue wearing his intentions on his sleeves, John had no issue doing the same in the DMs of the thread's OP. He intends to do nothing other than constantly scream into the void and show off his complete and utter lack of self-awareness. His mind wouldn't have been swayed no matter what you showed him. Like most, he brings up the inspect element excuse regardless of the messages being available through archive links. Even as Slate admitted to the tweets being real, John was still ample to defend them, saying that it was 8 years ago and that they're a different person now. You know, regardless of him saying that zoophilia isn't as bad as bestiality, as if they aren't one and the same. John did this to multiple people over both Twitter and Telegram, which I will link to those chat logs in the description. But this surprisingly wouldn't be the apex he would start his downhill descent on. That would instead be owed to the sexism. Because you see, in his hot pursuit to attack his detractors, he would come across a user voicing their thoughts on John defending SlatecCollie. In response, he would say
it to my face at LFC, you fucking battle axe.
This would be the first nail in the coffin, as well as a reminder that John is still the provocateur he always displayed himself to be. This screenshot will be spread moments after, as John had just dug himself deeper into a hole by not acknowledging the claim being made here. Not even trying to refute it, and instead opting to use an insult. The only thing is, this insult would immediately be taken as an attack at the person's race. See, person he went for here was an indigenous person, so I'm sure you can see where the connection was made. However, I'm unsure that's the case here. Only because the derogatory sense of battle axe is defined as an aggressive older woman, so it's probable John wasn't trying to be racist here. It's just a coin flip on whether he was being sexist or racist. Decisions. The reason I'm leaning more towards sexism is because of what occurred following this. Later down the line, we can see another user who is critical of John talking about their menstrual cycle in a tweet completely separate from discussion of the situation. Noticing this tweet, John took the opportunity to type, "No wonder you were being such a bitch to me on my timeline. It all makes sense now. Keep your nose where it belongs and out of business that doesn't involve you." This is where tolerance for John's antics would soon make their way towards an open window. At first, John would apologize on his After Dark account, saying that what he said was fucked up and distasteful, and that he doesn't support negativity. Now, I'm not skeptical of this apology because it's on his side account rather than his main account, which possesses an exponentially larger follower count. I'm skeptical more so because this is a guy who was just defending zoophiles to hell and back, invading multiple user DMs to berate them for thinking that Slate could condone zoophilia. Here they are apologizing for the thing that actually got them widely lambasted, commenting something straight up sexist. Or racist. Safe to say it wasn't taken well though. The consensus was that it was the equivalent to the "I'm sorry women" apology. I mean, this is the expected case when you could see him being criticized for doing this, only to respond with, "There are better ways to go about it, but I'm not going to take back what I said. I'm getting tired of people thinking they can talk shit and block me. I wanted to respond, and I did. You can judge me all you want for that." A complete turnabout from the position we'd see when he would try again the same day, this time on his main account. I'm probably reading a bit too much into it, but I don't believe that this move was too well thought out.
This is tough to make because I want to take accountability for what I said, and I want to apologize for what I said.
Am I analyzing it too deeply here? Probably. Will that stop me from doing so? I cannot answer that with a straight face. First off, I know we're all thinking it, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. Wearing a colorful, furry animal head during an apology video is perhaps the second most surefire way to ensure that no one takes your words seriously. Why is it the second, you may ask? But seriously, just overlay an image or make an audio-only post or something. You don't have to show your actual face, but it's better than this. So immediately, John would state that he is not personally sexist or misogynistic. One of the reasons he gives to deter this claim is that he has friends who are women.
I'm not personally sexist or misogynistic in any way towards women. I'm really not. I have a lot of women friends in this fandom, and I've never been hateful or mean towards them.
But honestly, it's on about the same level as your usual YouTuber apology. He vaguely describes what he's sorry for at first, calling it being hateful towards a woman for being a woman, rather than "I call this woman a bitch because she insulted me during her menstrual cycle."
And today I was hateful and mean towards a woman for being a woman.
To his credit though, he does at least rectify this later in the video.
I really said something I shouldn't have. And for me to say to a woman and comment on her period and call her a bitch is wrong and absolutely not okay. And I recognize that.
Although he does occasionally plug two buzzword sentences together incorrectly, making them that much more obvious to recognize.
It sucks and it's humiliating to have to do this, because not that I feel like I have to, but I want to.
But the core of this video is that he apologized to both the woman he insulted, as well as those who had to see it, because he holds himself as someone who spreads positivity in the fandom. He says this isn't to save face and that he could say nothing about it, but he wants to. But I don't think he notices saying how it's tough for him to make this apology when what he's apologizing for is making a sexist response to someone being critical of him kind of undermines that. That's why I personally don't see this as too genuine of an apology, because making a sexist retort alone hardly warranted an apology video in my eyes. If he planned on addressing the entire SlatecCollie situation as well, that would be fine. Or even denounce the battle axe comment too, which is never explicitly mentioned here, even under the umbrella of sexist posts.
And even though it's just one comment, it doesn't matter if it's 1 or 100, the severity is still there. And I definitely recognize that.
I'm sorry, I don't think you do. It isn't my place to accept or decline the apology meant for the person he insulted, and that's up for her to decide. But he did also apologize to those who had to see the comment. So as someone who had to see it for this video, this left a lot to be desired. It's not angeringly bad, but it is a bit of a slap to the face to see you only publicly acknowledge the relatively smallest controversy you got yourself into, gender-based name-calling. He would only further sabotage himself with the release of a third apology 2 days later. This is the last time I will speak on this for a long time. This was the caption of the third post he would make in response to this fallout. The post itself reads almost like a repeat of the second, starting off with, "We are only human. Everyone makes mistakes. Some are worse than others." He says that these actions were that of a heated gamer moment due to being insulted on the internet. He also explains, "Battle axe is not a term I was using to insult her race or indigenous background. I had no earthly clue what her ethnicity is. I was using it instead of saying bitch." Ironically. Apart from these sexist comments, he then mentions the zoophilia controversy. Oh, I'm sorry, no he doesn't. He just says calling him a zoophile apologist is grossly wrong and fucked up, without explaining why he's being called one to begin with. Instead, we get more rambling about how he doesn't hate women and women are great and, quote, dope as fuck and have great personalities. There's a reason he's pansexual after all, but the overall message of this post stays the same. That people make mistakes and that he isn't a misogynist or zoophile condoner, even though he doesn't explain a single thing about his adamant defending of SlatecCollie, or even the red rocket bong that he owns. The latter may be a bit of a stretch, but after allegations of you condoning zoophilia, surely there are better things for your image that don't involve smoking from a dog dick shaped bong on 420. Just throwing that out there. But you're probably wondering, how did he trip over himself this time? Well, beside the next image after this one, there was an oddly ironic line he puts in this post that reads, "You can choose to feed and fuel the flames to the fire for drama and clout, or you can choose to accept I'm only human." Looking back at John's history, you can probably feel the lack of self-awareness oozing out here. For the irony, however, just remember this line here, because the next image of this post would display absolute tone deafness. He announces that he'll be attending Furry Week in Atlanta 2022, and that the details of his next come party would be coming soon, ending with his trademark, okay, off record, what sound is this even mimicking? What animal sound is this? No canine howl or mule sounds like this, and it's legitimately getting to me. Anyways, something that has hardly come and gone would be that of his next come party announcement. An announcement that will plunge John further into infamy. But before we get to that, John would release a fourth post the same day as the third, addressing the controversy. Here, he laments about how this post wasn't supposed to be another apology, but his thoughts and comments on it all. This one is just the same deal of addressing sexism and promising to change as a person, the same thing we've seen in the past 3 so far. But the only thing that would undermine this post wasn't even the post itself this time, just him sharing battle axe fan art he received a week and a half after this post. At this point, it grows harder to tell which actions are yet another provocative move, or just John engaging in blatant stupidity for online notoriety. A line that his next announcement would easily tarnish. On April 24th, John would announce the plans for his 3rd GUI get-together. The name, Coming for Cancer, tells you exactly everything you need to know. John and his group were ejaculating in the name of charity, namely the Testicular Cancer Society. A screenshot of the Telegram group used to organize the event would show the details of what was planned. According to this, there was a raffle to be held. You'd be given a ticket to enter just for attending, but you could receive more tickets through 3 methods: giving or receiving a nut, or by nutting onto the sea salt Dakimakura that will be given as a raffle prize alongside a Manscaped package and other potential Dakis. An absolutely nauseating thought, but remember guys, they're being degenerates for charity. That completely negates how absolutely distasteful the idea to have a sex party for a nut cancer awareness nonprofit is, right? Either way, there was a large crowd of those who would share their disgust as well as their stories of experiencing or losing a loved one to cancer. Due to the resounding backlash, he would retweet 2 of the replies that disavowed the event, only to later undo it in favor of retweeting more fursuit content, as well as the release of a message concerning the backlash. The caption, "It's never too late to change." A statement that loses any and all meaning from him when this is the 5th time you've needed to respond to a controversy you've created, all in the same month. He says how they never meant to insult or offend anyone suffering from cancer. All 3 of them have been affected by the disease and they sympathize with everyone. Due to the backlash, they announced that they would be changing the name, theme, and details of the party, along with providing phrases I never thought I'd have to hear aloud, such as, "We are no longer going to come for cancer," and "There will be other activities and events to raise money for the charity instead that will not be done through coming." Yes, they still plan to raise money for charity at this event. Speaking of, does the charity even know anything about this? The Testicular Cancer Society and the Testicular Cancer Foundation were both contacted via email. Both asked if they were aware of what John had been planning. Not only were both charities entirely unaware, but as the TCF clarified it was the Testicular Cancer Society listed in the tweet, they essentially said that they wouldn't admit to this being a fundraiser for their group, as it doesn't follow their fundraising code of conduct. This was immediately taken as John attempting to swindle money from people under the guise of a spunk-driven charity endeavor. Personally, I don't really see it. Even without seeing John make his way to FWA with his fursuit on presumably the whole flight, there is a tried and true explanation to this, as well as a majority of his actions. John doesn't think his actions through at all. He recklessly makes a step forward without thinking of what'll happen after. If you look back, you'll see it happen time and time again. It happened with the BLFC pizza as he shared information to a random reply and expects everyone to have seen it. And it just keeps happening during the SlatecCollie and sexist comment ordeals. And because he doesn't think ahead, the next step he has to take is almost always damage control. This is why we have the Atreus Otter interview and 4 goddamn responses that really only talk about a small corner of the hole he dug himself into. And don't get me wrong, I don't believe these controversies should define him by any means. The thing is, people actually have to make the effort to do it, and that won't happen unless you actually want to change yourself. So if a certain green furry happens to be watching this video, you can either actually change for the better, as you've repeated so many times already, only to delete everything later on, but you know. Or you can take notes from the Zoo Falcon running friend you appear so adamant to defend with that same ideology of change, even while they double down right in front of you. Your choice to make. But as we've reached the end here, that does it for me. Chances are this video is being uploaded on the last day of FWA. And while he did say they were renaming and changing Coming for Cancer to not be centered around just that, it was scheduled for May 7th, the day I'm recording this. So if you're hearing me say this, either nothing about it went public yet, or it was just cancelled outright. If anything comes up after this upload, you should see me mention it in a pinned comment, if not another video altogether. But for now, that was Band Wolfie. An internet persona that I personally see as an amalgamation of what I find wrong with the furry fandom. The fact that someone could just nut on food, leave it in the hallway for a bit, and gain a following of thousands strong overnight, I don't think deplatforming over it is something that absolutely has to be done, but maybe we as a fandom should probably be more critical of who we give internet fame to. What happened has happened. There's nothing more you can really do about it but learn for the future. Stay safe out there.
Preaching my heart out for 45 minutes to an hour on that one word, come. And it was one of our Lord's favorite words. Come unto me. Come and drink. Come and dine. Jesus said, come, come, and come, come, come. And it goes on and on and on. I know this is dumb, friends, but there are people that still haven't got it. So bear with me. When I say come, it means come. And I'm coming. You're coming. When I turn to my son and I say, come, I want them to come. That word come is universal.